So, we were talking yesterday, and you mentioned that your aunt, Kamala Harris, pulling out of the race is still really raw for you. What's that been like? Tell us a little bit about what it's meant to the family.
Yeah, I'm like, let me not start crying in the first sentence that I utter. It is still raw. I am still, in a funk. I sort of thought, am I ready to talk about it? I've had the support of, my incredible family and friends, but it's hard. It's hard. I think what I would start with and what I think about and what I remind myself every day is just what an incredible inspiration it was and is to see her have the courage to dare to do something like that. And somebody I heard mention this just now, but some of the more emotional, both emotional moments and the moments where I really understood the impact and importance of what we were doing and what she is doing were those moments that she was spending with children and little girls, right? And the way that they would look at her and you could see in their eyes that they could see themselves, right? That is something that they could dare to do. And so, I think I cherish those aspects of it. I know that the work is not over. I was joking with you that as much as I am still emotional about it and it is raw, like just seeing her at that Senate hearing today in that amazing pink blazer, just killing it and like, I'm back. I never went anywhere actually. I'm here. I'm never going anywhere and we have a lot of work to do. That's what I needed, right. And so I think that's also what I carry with me, both in terms of the personal experience and being able to see, one of my closest family members do something incredibly courageous and show women like all of us in this room, in addition to those little girls, like the possibility, right? That is possible. And that we are daring to achieve a future that we all proclaim to be true when we say that the future is female, right? And that is something that we are still working towards.
So let me ask you a little bit about that. I mean, the Democratic Party started out this campaign season with probably the most diverse slate that we've ever seen, and next week we're likely to have an all-white debate stage. Give us your expert opinion. What happened here?
Well, I think we have to be really honest, right, about sort of the dynamics that we are confronting. And as you said, we started out with one of the most diverse slates of candidates in American history, right? And what a profound, incredible thing to show my daughters, right? And my 3-year-old still says, I want to be a president, right? And to see that and that representation mattering. And now with Kamala's departure, where we're going to have, I think Andrew Yang just qualified, but Kamala had already qualified for the December debate. That next week we are going to have nearly an all-white, panel and debate stage. And I think the sort of things that we have to confront, honestly, are what we saw with her race and what we are seeing with other women, is that women are not treated the same. They are held to a different standard, and by that I mean a double standard, right? Where they are scrutinized in a different way, where they are asked different questions, where people really focus on things and with much more rigor than they do other people. So that's number one, that I think we really need to be honest about that. And somebody was saying this just before I came on stage, but we have to talk about this, right? We have to acknowledge this. We have to, each of us in our own spheres of influence, in our families, in our communities, need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk to our kids about it. And then the other is a harsh reality that has been really, stunning to see, which is that the decision and the access and the ability for someone to have a seat at the table should not be determined by how much money you have. And we are now looking at a debate stage that not only is going to be, nearly all white, but where we have more billionaires than black people on the stage, right? It reminds me that it's a problem. It reminds me of the statistic that among Fortune 500 CEOs, there are more male CEOs named James than there are female CEOs, right? This is a problem. And so, and I think about, what we have lost in that way, right? And the messages and the signals that we are sending, which are that, your voice matters, you have access if you have billions of dollars. That's stunning. And, with her departure, I think about, what we're missing out on. And the obvious are that we're missing out on the only Black woman to run for president, the only woman of color who was polling in the top 5, right, who had a real shot, who's no longer there because of money. And then also, the issues that she was bringing to the table, right? She was bringing light to and voice to issues that we heard from New Hampshire to, Iowa, South Carolina, Nevada, all across the country, that regular people were saying, this is what I care about and this speaks to me. And I'm talking about teacher pay, right? The only person on that debate stage to bring up reproductive rights, to talk about how we take Black women for granted in the political process. And so my point overall, I think, when you look at sort of those two dynamics, is that representation matters. It's not the only thing that matters. And diversity matters, right? And we are just sucking that out of the process. And right now, the image that we have is one that really troubles me. The moments, beyond sort of the personal, and that this, we went into this not thinking it was going to be easy. We knew, right, this was not going to be easy, and in fact, that it was going to be very hard. But the moment that we are in this country, when I sit back and look at that, that is what really troubles me.
So yeah, I want to dig into this a little bit, because something that has kept coming up in the campaign over and over again is this idea of electability, mm-hmm, right? And I think that that's a very coded word. What does that mean exactly, and how are people using it in this context?
What does it mean? Who the hell knows, right? I mean, I think for me, the message is that, and we know this, that you are unelectable until you get elected, right? And Kamala was told that every race that she ran, right? When she dared to run for district attorney of San Francisco as the first Black woman to do that, she was told she couldn't do it, right? Same thing for Attorney General of California. No one's done this before. You're not electable. You can't do that. I think that, there came a point in the campaign where she started addressing it head on and saying, like, let's just address this, because we know that it's an issue, and we hear coded language in the media and other places that are basically, saying that. And I think it's really not complicated. Like, that's the fact that she had to address it and have that conversation is in and of itself evidence of that double standard, right? That other people get a presumption, whereas she had to have a conversation about it. And, I think, again, it kind of goes back to this entire conversation around representation and diversity, where we need to create a future that shows what is possible, and that I'm electable, and that you're electable, and that anyone in this room is, and that the people who have access to that, or the people who are deemed to be worthy of that, cannot only be white male billionaires, right?
Right. So, we've been talking about some of the systemic issues here. Tell me a little bit about lessons learned, right? There were some missteps. What do you think, kind of going forward, the campaign will take away from this if someday she decides to run again?
I think, kind of building on what we just talked about, I think about the moments of scrutiny, right? And yes, every campaign makes mistakes. And if any of you in this room have worked at early stage startups, it's kind of similar to that, right? Where you are building the plane while you are flying it. It is complete chaos, and on a actually much more accelerated timeline, right? And we know across campaigns that people have experienced those sorts of issues, but I think, again, the lessons learned are, and I hate to sound cynical, I mean, this is still fresh, it's still raw, and I'm still kind of, reorienting myself, but what I saw was that we are sending a message that women are not allowed to make mistakes, and that you have to be perfect, right? And that any little thing that happens, we're going to really scrutinize that in a way that other people are not held to that standard. So I think in terms of lessons, it's really going in, understanding that that is still the landscape that we are dealing with, and being real about that, right? I think I see a lot of people now, grieving and are saddened by her departure, and are now saying, well, the media is erasing so-and-so, or this headline didn't acknowledge this. Now we really, really got to say something because we saw what happened. It's like, it's too late, right? We're, Iowa caucuses are 3 months from now.
Right.
Like, don't wait to say things like that. And it matters, right?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the enthusiasm bubble up now in some ways, right? Post.
Sure, yeah.
So, we have seen and I'm going to come to questions actually in just a second, but we've seen a record-breaking number of Black women elected to Congress last year, but women are still struggling to reach the highest levels of office. We've never had a Black female governor. What is it going to take? What do you think is it really going to just push this forward?
It takes all of us. I mean, I think that we saw that with, obviously Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor of Georgia, was up against some pretty nefarious, actors and voter suppression and things like that. But it takes all of us. I think that we are in a moment of crisis, and I don't think that any of us can afford to sit on the sidelines. And Phenomenal Woman, my company, I mean, what we're all about is saying that any of us can do something, and it's, we need to meet people where they are. I know we are all busy living our lives, taking our kids to school and our jobs, but there is something that each of us can be doing, and we cannot wait another minute. And I view this as one of the probably most consequential elections of our lifetime. And whether that means contributing money to women of color and committing to that, or actually knocking on doors, making calls, talking to your kids about this. It doesn't even, I think the message as well for Phenomenal Woman is it doesn't have to be political. I personally think that there is no greater moment and no greater responsibility that we have in presidential cycles to get involved. And people always ask, like, what can I do? There are like concrete things that you can be doing right now. However, if you don't want to sort of be political, that's okay too, but there are other ways that you can be engaging with these issues, with these communities. And so I think just conveying that urgency and really understanding that it actually, I think it goes beyond politics, right? It goes beyond this moment. We are talking about the future that we are showing to our children, and whether or not we're willing to actually commit and lean into paving the way for that to happen, right? I mean, this is about, are we able to show that it actually is achievable, that these folks actually are electable, and that they can reach the highest office in the most powerful position in the world. And I just think that all of us have to take on that feeling of duty and responsibility to do anything that we can in our sort of ordinary, regular lives to be engaged.
So before we go to questions, just if you could explain to the audience what Phenomenal Women does.
Yeah, so we are a women-powered civic organization that raises awareness around social causes. We launched in a similar kind of, I think, urgent moment coming out of the 2016 election. And it, for me, was just that, right? I felt like I could not possibly sit by the sidelines, and that I had to, whatever I could in my own little space, do something. And so I actually started off with a sort of different pursuit, which we launched a pantsuit drive. It was literally like 2 days after the election. I was at Javits Center in New York City on election night where everything was happening, and it just felt apocalyptic. And I went home and I thought, I have this pantsuit that I bought, and there's Pantsuit Nation, all these women had come together, like, why don't we put this towards something good and engage people and continue that engagement? So it stemmed from that, right? What else can I do? How can I make a contribution? And so it was a very small concept. It was printing Phenomenal Woman, inspired by Maya Angelou's poem, Phenomenal Woman, on a t-shirt. It was supposed to be a 1-month fundraising campaign for women's organizations, and on the first day we sold 2,500 shirts. I thought we were gonna sell like 50, and I never thought I would still be talking about it. It's still going. And I think the message is what I've been saying today, which is I kept it going because I felt that urgency and I saw the need for it. I saw how it is able to create community among all kinds of different women, right? And for people who, again, are going about their ordinary lives, you want to go to brunch on Sundays and like do what you do, like that's okay. And wearing a t-shirt that costs $35 that benefits women's organizations, like that is an act of using your voice. That is an act of being engaged. And I think all of us need to carry that with us every single day at least until November 2020, but I hope beyond that.
Do we have any questions for Meena? We have one back here. Great. If you could introduce yourself too.
Hi, I'm Barry Williams. My son was devastated when Kamala dropped out, but his immediate reaction was, well, at least we have Elizabeth Warren, and then if she doesn't win, then we have Julian Castro, and I haven't been able to break it to him yet. Julian Castro is not going to really be in contention like Elizabeth Warren. But something that he and I kind of talked about, and he's 9, is the lack of diversity that's going to be on the stage. I've watched every single debate with my 9-year-old, and he is very politically astute and interested. And one thing he asked me is, well, if we saw Hillary lose in 2016, is it possible to win with another monochromatic ticket? So I would then posit that question to you, considering what the debate stage is going to look like. Is that possible?
I mean, it's possible. We've done it before, right? I mean, this is historic that we have a diverse, slate of candidates. But I'm not going to get into like political strategy because I could be here all day with you guys. I just I would point to how much it breaks my heart that your son is seeing that and asking that question of, can we still succeed when there are people who are going to be out there leading us that don't look like me and are not representing me, right? And I get, emotional. Like, this is like, especially when you have kids.
It's okay. Take a second.
Thanks. It's hard, and I think part of, not to give you like parent advice, is that Bari? I'm like, I can't see you very well. It is, oh my God. The lights are so bright. Hi, love you. You gotta have those conversations, and I've had moments even, I have a 3-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and I think the older one was she was like 1.5, and we get the New Yorker at our house, and there's, always a cartoon, it often has Trump on it. And one day she said, "Who is that?" And I said, "That's Donald Trump." And my partner was like, "Oh, no, like, we're not gonna." And I was like, "We're gonna talk about this, right? And I don't care if you are 2 or 3, but the fact that you are having those conversations with your son and being honest about that, right? And that we have a lot of work to do and we still need to fight. And I don't know what the future holds. I'm very concerned. And I think, back to what I was saying, that I think it starts with conversations in your home, conversations with your children, and acknowledging that this is a problem and that is not the future I believe in. That is not the future that I aspire to, and that I think we as a country aspire to. And it's a problem. And it's up to each of us to engage with that and talk about it and speak those truths, right? That's what Kamala talked about, is speaking truth. And we, each of us have power to do that.
Would you ever run for office?
Hell no.
Why not?
I'll phrase it in a more positive way. Since launching Phenomenal Woman, have really come to understand sort of like what my contributions are and what my value is. And for me, that's really in being an entrepreneur. And I think it goes to the point that each of us have a role to play, and that for some of us it absolutely has a role to play, and for some of us it absolutely is at the ballot box, right? But for others it could be, as an entrepreneur or as a CEO of a company or as an executive at a company that has a lot of influence, right? Each of us can be doing something from our own spaces. I think it's important to have these conversations and to urge women to run for office, but I also feel like there's a lot that is missing from those conversations about how hard it is. And if you are a primary caretaker, what that means for your family, if you are bringing in 50% of the income to your household, how that affects your family. Like, there are really real things that I think we need to talk about in terms of, women deciding to do that. And the fact that it's a huge risk, right? Like, the odds are against you. But yeah, it's not for me. I will do anything I can from the outside, and I've been doing that, and this journey with Phenomenal Woman has really solidified that for me, and feeling okay that, like, I don't have to do it that way. There are other ways that I can engage and that I can contribute and make a difference.
Well, even though you're not going to run for office, we're looking forward to watching what you do next. So Meena, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.